I've got absolute empathy for organizations who will have done empowerment transactions which were clearly value enhancing for those who are empowered, and clearly a cost to existing shareholders then, who say we did wonderful transaction, the BE players made a lot of money, and rightfully after some time they decided to exit. And why must we be required to start from scratch again? I've got empathy for the position, but at the same time the reality is that most of the empowerment structures have not benefited empowerment companies. They made headlines, but they were so poorly designed that 7 years later, it's debatable whether the companies who were the target for empowerment structures really made money. And therefore, whatever credit may have been obtained during that time was obtained under false pretenses. Maybe not by design, but certainly by default. And therefore, there is justification for going back to the drawing board to make sure that empowerment structures you put in place are sustainable and they deliver value to those who are intended targets. But most importantly, not just on ownership, but also at other levels. Beyond the change of ownership at the top, there must be visible increase in new players who are part of the supply chain of those companies. There must be visible improvement in employment equity at all levels. There must be greater participation by companies in assisting communities where they do business in the area of corporate social investment, and so on and so forth. So if the companies do well at that level, they will always argue that, yes, there may have been a change of ownership, but look, we've done exceptionally well on what we call equity type equivalence, or in other areas which are critical in the balanced empowerment scorecard. So yes, I've got empathy for those who say once empowered, always empowered. But I also have empathy for those who say, look, you did a dud deal, go back to the drawing board and do it again. Well, education is a bugbear of any concerned South African. I mean, the quality of teaching, the quality of learning, especially in public schools, in townships, is a source of major concern. One will say leaves much to be desired. I mean, there are many indicators that would serve to underpin this concern. Child pregnancy, abuse of drug and hard substances, the level of crime, criminality in our schools, would make anyone who wants to send his child to that kind of school really be concerned. The quality of teaching, the involvement. I mean, one reads about teachers who are literally feasting themselves on school kids. Teachers who are involved in criminality, teachers who spend most time outside of the classroom, and you can't touch them because they're members of powerful trade unions. A combination of all of those factors would reduce the level of confidence that the private sector has in the products that emerge from those schools. That said, sometimes the crisis is over-exaggerated, if it is indeed a crisis. It's a major concern without any doubt. The question that needs to be asked is the private sector doing enough to partner with government, for example, in supporting the FET colleges, where people can acquire some skills and have got focused training on some vocations, but they need to be given exposure to the workplace, given a chance to work. Is the private sector throwing their hands on the wheel, as it were? It's debatable that they are doing sufficiently in that space. But I think there's scope for collaboration, and there are initiatives which involve major or big business in South Africa, where they are saying they want to throw money, they want to throw time in supporting the development of school infrastructure in particular, so that it becomes world class. The amount of money that government deploys in education and the value from that money is not consistent with a country which wants to be world class. We're throwing a lot of money, but the outcomes are just below par. So again, it talks to the issue of attitudes. Do the trade unions display the kind of attitudes that will make education a winner for this country? Do the private sector throw sufficient support to the education system? Is the government firm enough in fulfilling its responsibility, more than just throwing money, more than just tweaking the numbers and, quite frankly, lowering the standards? The idea of a 35% as a pass mark is still baffles my mind right up to now. No amount of spinning it will make sense. The fact that we've got mathematics, call it literacy, as a subject, you pass that, I don't know whatever it's called. It doesn't make any sense to me. We can just stretch our young minds just a little bit, so that when they complete matric, they've got mathematics. And if they cannot pass mathematics, we create an opportunity for them to do something else, or to have finishing classes, because the economies that we are competing with, even in BRICS and elsewhere in the emerging world, economic world, are focusing a great deal on developing intellectual capital, which is our young people, to be competitive, not just numerically, but also in terms of literacy. I don't think we are doing the best that we need to do. We need to roll up our sleeves, not just as government, but as parents as well, and be involved and be interested in the education of our kids, as business as well as labor, especially the trade unions involved in the education sector.